kids are safe. So this is something, whatever you do, it's something that that every new person needs to do, and that every 3 years, and in some cases, some conferences are requiring it to happen more often, that it needs to be renewed. So we want to make sure that this isn't old data, that it is renewed and updated. And in your conference, you need to find out, as a club leader, you need to find out, so how do you pass that information on to your conference? When you register your club, do you give them the list of staff, and so that they can verify with you? And what happens when you have a new staff member? So you need to be really diligent about making sure that your club is a safe place. And there may be more questions on that later, and we can take that during Q&A. So now let me talk to you about reports. And I know that in Arkansas, Louisiana, you guys transfer information differently than some other conferences, and every conference has something a little bit different. But let me just talk to you a little bit about why the conference needs for you to report from my perspective. The conference, if the conference doesn't know what's happening in your clubs, they won't be able to plan events and plan activities effectively. They want to know what you're doing so that they can stay in the communication loop, so that they can share news, updates, and also need to know that what you're doing and who to communicate with, so they can give you updates. I was at a conference here last year and doing a training, and I was talking with the conference director afterwards, and she said, so there's a club that I just found out about. They've been operating all year long, and they just asked for investiture stuff. So they were completely disconnected all year long, doing their own thing, didn't know what was happening with the conference. And so there's a couple of big problems with that. One is they probably weren't insured, because if they hadn't applied with the conference hadn't said, yes, you are approved club, the conference insurance probably didn't cover them. So thankful that it didn't sound like anything really bad happened during that school year or during that Pathfinder Adventure year. But then the other thing is they didn't have any idea what was going on with the conference, so they couldn't participate in any of the activities. So please go ahead and get your reports in, follow the protocols, and that way you'll be able to know what's happening. The other thing that I'm going to say, and I'm going to speak to you as a bit more of an administrator right now, is that your reports help conference youth directors obtain funding and in setting their budgets. When your youth director, I can tell you this absolutely, when your youth director, just like any other youth director, talks to administrators about the budget that they need to do Adventure and Pathfinder ministries, it is very, very helpful to them to have good, accurate numbers, because administrators, by their nature, live on numbers. And if they just say, well, we've got a very active Pathfinder and Adventure Club ministry, well, that's good. A lot of other people think that they're active too. But we want to know, how many staff, how many kids, what's the level of activity, how many kids are being baptized during the Adventure and Pathfinder year. And the monthly information that you give to your conference gets passed on to the union and the division. And I can tell you absolutely that when the division directors, because I talk with them before they get ready to go in for budget review, which they just did a couple of weeks ago, then if they can have accurate numbers about what's happening in conferences across the division, it really helps them to be able to get funding, to provide resources, to provide training, for your local conference. So you send your report, they send their report, the union sends their report, and it all helps us to know. So this is what's happening in Adventure and Pathfinder ministries. So here's some reports from the conference that may or may not be in your packet, but I'm just going to go through them here. And if this isn't the exact one, there'll be something close. So the yearly club, the club yearly application. So you're going to need to.
You're like in a nest.
That the conference knows that you are operating. So when we'll talk about this with the board, so you need to have your board approve that you're going to have a club, and then you need to apply with your conference, because the conference is the place that has the insurance. Your local church will get insurance through the conference. So you need to do that. You need to have it soon. Don't wait until 6 months in and say, oh shoot, we should have sent our application into the conference. Volunteer staff application forms, that of course ties all together with what you're going to do to verify your volunteers. The medical information, every state, I believe, has different medical requirements as far as what you need to treat. You need to have that for all of your staff. Vehicle usage, again, you need to make sure that you do that. This is all coming from the conference. Club outing permission slips. If you're going to be doing something or off-site activity, you need to have the form that gets filled out. And in most conferences, I don't know what it's like in Arkansas or Louisiana, but in most states now, they're not allowing you just to give a blanket statement at the beginning of the year that says you can do anything you want to. For each outing, every child has to have a permission slip. And then the record sheets and points. I see pointy record. Sorry about the typo there. So the point systems that you guys use, make sure that you're locked in on that. TLT applications, payment policies for events. What does your conference require for that? And hopefully you'll never have to use this, but you need to know what the process is if there is some sort of accident, how you turn that in, how you report it first, and then how you turn it in. So I want to talk for just a minute about area coordinators, because area coordinators are really, really your best friend if you're the director. Because area coordinators normally have years of experience, and they can offer a wealth of information. You know, they've been there, they've been club directors, they've been through things. There very seldom are new things that come up. They may be new to you, but so being in on your area coordinators are there to be able to help you build your ministry better. So go ahead and make sure that you know who your area coordinator is and that you regularly connect with them. So talking about that, so I would encourage you to develop a personal relationship. Don't just know who they are, but develop a personal relationship. And area coordinators have challenges just like Pathfinder directors and Pathfinder staff. So I would just urge you to put your area coordinator on your prayer list. Pray for them just like you do the rest of your staff, because you're part of the team. They're part of your team. And look for ways that you can encourage your area coordinator, whether it's a text or a phone call, giving them a gift when they come to your church. Once we are back to having churches do programming and they come there, make sure they get recognized and thanked for what they're doing. And then again, I'm just looking forward to the post-COVID era when you're going to be able to invite your area coordinator to come to the events that you're doing. So as we get into that time, make sure that you plan far enough ahead. Don't call your area coordinator on Wednesday and say, we're having something this Sabbath. Can you come over? I mean, you could do that, but there's a pretty good chance they already have something going. So be respectful of the area coordinator's time and schedule them out ahead of time. And then the other thing that I would say is, if you're doing a camp out or something, invite your area coordinator to eat meals with you. And they're there without a club now, so they don't have the group to eat meals with. So just make sure you take care of your area coordinator, and they will take care of you. So it's a great symbiotic relationship. So now let's talk about the church board. So unless the church board approves, takes action that you have a club, technically you don't have a club. Legally, you don't have a club, and you don't have any coverage, which means that all the liability is on you as an individual, and you don't want to have that happen. So the first thing that you need to do is to say to the church board, you are, as a Pathfinder director and as an adventure director, you're a member of the church board. Make sure that you know when those meetings are and show up to them. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. But if I had you live here in the room, at least a couple of people would groan, because church boards can maybe not be the most exciting thing in the world, but they're important, and they're important to your club ministry. So as soon as you're ready to go with your club, you need to tell the board that you are having a club, and give them your calendar to vote, and make sure that that gets recorded in the minutes, because that's going to be very important as if you ever have to get covered by insurance. Plus, you want for the church board to know what your schedule is, and hopefully they won't schedule other things on top of your important events. So you also need to have your budget approved and voted on. And that's not the end of it. I would strongly encourage you to give regular reports to the church board regarding the budget. And we're going to talk a little bit about reporting here. But one of the things that you need to keep your board up to date is on your budget. And that's going to be particularly true in yours for you Pathfinder Club directors, in yours going up to Oshkosh, where you start needing to raise funds, and you may start asking the church for some additional funding to be able to help all your kids to be able to go to Oshkosh. So make sure that your church board knows what's happening with finances, because if they're not completely comfortable with the finances, then you're going to have a hard time getting your support, their support when you need it. I always suggest to Pathfinder Club directors that they share their curriculum with the church board. So the board knows what it is you're doing. You don't have to get in deep with the curriculum, but let them know that we're doing the Adventure Club curriculum for our kids that are pre-K through 4th grade, and we're doing the Investiture Achievement for 5th grade through 10th grade. And maybe talk to them a little bit about, so what does that mean? So they can be very comfortable. I'm going to talk about your presentation here, but let me just say that one of the things that I worry about with Pathfinder and Adventure clubs both is that people who don't know what you're doing, who aren't part of the club, who aren't there, who just see the outside edges, think that all Pathfinder clubs do are march and go camping and occasionally show up to take up the offering, maybe. But you need to, it's our job as leaders to communicate that Pathfinder Adventure Club ministry is it is those things, and it's much more. Like the preacher said this morning, Pathfinders and Adventures is a fabulous discipleship journey that we can take the kids through their entire young child through into high school age. And we need to find good ways to be able to share that with leadership, because particularly people who have never been in Pathfinders and have never been in Adventures or had their kids in there, a lot of times they really don't know what it is that we're doing in the club. So in order to do that effectively, you're going to want to develop relationships with the board members. So just take them on one at a time, make sure that they know what's happening. I would challenge you as adventure club leaders for everyone on the board to know that you're the adventure club person. Okay, you're the person who lives, breathes, and spends for kids that are pre-K through fourth grade. And so when you have a chance, whenever that is, whether it's before the board, whether it's after, whether it's in the lobby of the church, or whether you connect with them and say, hey, can I talk to you about Pathfinder Club ministry? That you connect with them so that they know what's happening individually, and then you share with them. You're going to find some allies there, some people who really align well with your ministry, and you're going to find people there that aren't as interested. That's okay. So focus in on your allies, on the people that are very interested in what's happening with your club ministry, and keep them up to date. Don't wait until the board meeting. When you see them, just say, hey, I just want to tell you this really great thing happened in our club, and please pray for us. So develop those relationships, and then you're going to have the opportunity to give a report. And I would encourage you to ask the chair, which is usually the pastor, to give a report at every board meeting. Don't think that you're going to get on every meeting, and don't ask for 30 minutes of their time. But try to be on the agenda. We want for them to know that Pathfinder and Adventure Club Ministries, we don't just come, ask for budget, and then disappear for a year. We want to let them know every month, this is what's happening. What I would encourage you to do is, as you're thinking about those, certainly you got a bit of budget. We've got to give updates on the budget. We need to let them know what's happening in the schedule. But I would really encourage you to look for stories, to bring a story every month that says, this is how our club ministry is making a difference in the life of this child or of these kids. This is what we did on camping. In camping, we didn't just rain the whole time and all of the things that happen when we camp, but we had the opportunity for kids to make a decision for Jesus, because we were there, we were gathered around the fire. People were shivering because we were cold, but this was a chance when we were able to talk about this Bible story and to challenge the kids to do this. Break it down to something that the board can say, yeah, that's something that we need to be doing. And again, we know that that's happening, but a lot of people don't know. And I would say the same thing with Adventure Club. You need to be able to share with your board. So these are the cool things that are happening with the kids and with the parents, because the parents are right there. So these are parents that are engaged. This is what we're asking them to do. We're really trying to assist the family into developing family worship, into discipling their young kid as they come up through. And we're checking in every week or every 2 weeks at club meeting. Okay, so here's where I would like for you all to go ahead and just write these things down. So if you can just remember them, that's fine. But here's some things that if we were in a room right now, I would have you divide into groups, but we're not going to do them in Zoom groups. But I would have you divide into groups, and every group would then make a presentation to the whole group. So we want to prepare a presentation to your church board on why you should start a club. Now, all of you, since you're here, have a club, or at least to some degree. Maybe some people are just getting started, but you need to have a presentation. You need to be able to talk, even if you already have a club, and saying, why should the church have a club? It takes a lot of your time, a lot of other people's time. It costs money. People could be doing other things. Why shouldn't people just go to Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts? I mean, they're doing all their stuff, and they do camping and crafts and all that stuff anyway. So why should we have Adventure Club and Pathfinder Club? You need to be really clear about that and have what some people call an elevator pitch. So when you get into an elevator with someone, you got to talk to them about Pathfinder Adventure Club ministry, and you got to have it succinct enough so when you get off at the 4th floor, you've been able to say it. Okay, so why should you have it? And then I would say to you, prepare a club budget. All of you are going to have to do that here coming up, but prepare it for the board. Okay, so it's not just this is the money we need to have, but is this worth the investment? If your board's like my board, there's some business people on it, and they're always saying, man, that's a lot of money. If we spent that somewhere else, maybe we could do more with it. So you want to make sure that people on the board are very clear that these funds are being used directly to help disciple these kids, and that you also need to be able to share with them that club members are paying dues, or families are paying dues, however you decide to do that. I want for you to be ready to prepare a report to the church board about an off-site activity. Okay, so whether this is a field trip or camping or something that you did outside. So why did you go there? What happened? What were you expecting to happen? How were you planning on making a difference in kids' lives by doing this? It isn't just fun and games, although it is fun and games, but our bottom line goal is to connect with the kids, connect them to Jesus, and to help to connect them to the Seventh-day Adventist Church. And then the last thing that I would say that you need to practice is you need to prepare a report to the church board on what's happened this past month in the club. So this would be something that you would do on particularly busy months when there was things that you say, man, the board members would really like to hear about the cool things that's happening in our club. Please don't say to them, we had club meeting on this night, and then we had club meeting on this night, and we're going to go camping. So describe to them what happens in club meeting, and that John Moore, who's a fifth grader, gave the worship talk. And this is what it was about. And the kids were paying attention because he's the fifth grade. He's one of the youngest Pathfinders there, and he's talking about what's happening in his life as part of the worship. So again, I would really encourage you in the board meetings to really make Pathfinder and Adventure Club Ministries something that's personal, that talks about, you may not be able to share the kids' names or the parents' names, but in some cases you can, and you'll know. So before we go to Q&A time here, I just want to say to you, so little things make a big difference in your ministry. And I would just say that the little things, like making sure that the conference has the information that they want, like making sure that you connect with your area coordinator and learn, soak in from them what their experience, and then making sure that your church board is informed and your church board is on board. Those are some of the keys to success in your club ministry. So that's what I have for you. And I think that we're going to have Q&A now.
Yes, sir. And I do have a couple questions ready for you.
Okay.
All right. The first question is, what if you can't get your church board to give you any funding?
Oh, well, first of all, you need to know that you aren't alone. There are other church boards who have not, there's an amount of money that the churches say we have to work with, and there's lots of ministries trying to, they have to decide who gets it. So I would say it's even more reason to say to prepare the budget of what it actually costs. Say how that the parents and other people who donate are making it happen, and tell the story about club ministry. You need to convince the board that Pathfinder Club Ministry or Adventure Club Ministry is something that's worth them supporting as part of their budget. Now, if your church isn't giving any money to any ministries, then you're going to have to decide, well, so is it just a matter of this is what's happening in our church financially? But I would point out to them that this is not only discipleship, but it's evangelism in a time when kids are going to be most likely to make decisions for Jesus. They're going to be when they're late adventure, early Pathfinder, and the research says if they make a decision for Jesus and join the Seventh-day Adventist Church, they're going to be most likely to be lifetime Christians and Adventists. The percentage, I don't have it right off the top of my head, but most of you have heard it. It's like 20 or 30 times higher than if they make that decision later on in life.
All right, thank you. Question number 2. How would you handle a disorganized church board that causes you to have trouble getting things approved?
Well, I guess I'm not sure quite what disorganized church board. So you need to have a connection with the chair. Don't surprise the chairperson with what you're bringing. So I would say in most cases that will be the pastor. So make sure you're connected with the pastor. Know that you know what you're going to be bringing up. And then I think this would lead back to what I was saying earlier about developing relationships. So you're going to need to find someone, even if it's one person or two people on that board, that is willing to step in and speak for Adventure Club Ministries, speak for Pathfinder Club Ministries. And you know, makeups of boards are different, but a lot of times the people that are on those boards, either their grandkids are in Adventure Club or in Pathfinder Club Ministry. And I would connect with those people and make sure that they know how great it is to have their kids in Adventure Club Ministry or Pathfinder Club Ministries, and develop that relationship.
Thank you. Our next question is, does every single thing our club does need to be voted by the board, or is it just the big things like campery?
Yeah, let me answer that question pretty generically, because that's something that your conference is going to want to say. But I am pretty confident in saying that anytime your club leaves where they normally would have your club meeting, that you need to have that be approved. So anytime you leave the building, whether you're walking, riding a bicycle, or getting in vans, you need to have that approved, and you need to have permission slips.
Okay, thank you. The next question is, our pastor is not supportive of Pathfinders. How do I get him on board?
Yeah, so a lot of times pastors, if they haven't experienced Pathfinder Club Ministry, or if they had a bad experience, because you know, not everyone has a great experience, or at least they remember something that's different than what happened. So again, I would try to, I don't know how well you know your pastor or how long they're there, but I would say look for what they are excited about, what they are interested in doing, what they're trying to achieve. And then, you know, in Pathfinder Club Ministries, but and even in Adventure, there's a broad range of things. So if they're really into evangelism, then make sure that your club does the evangelism award, and talk to your pastor about saying, you know, so our club really wants to be involved in this. And to do our award, this is what we need to do. I would say in my, now this isn't absolutely true, but I would say that a lot of pastors that aren't supportive of Pathfinder and Adventure Club is because they really got hung up on the uniform, on all the patches and pins, on the drill and marching, and they really don't know much about the curriculum and the experience of what actually happens in the club, and how we're able to take kids in an age-appropriate journey of discipleship. So I hope that helps.
Thank you. Okay, the next question is, our club is not allowed to participate in the church service because they don't want the kids to mess it up. How can we get support from our church body?
Well, that sounds like a issue that's maybe broader than Pathfinder Club Ministries. So one of the things that I would say to you is, so we have a Pathfinder Sabbath, and I think there's an Adventure Club Sabbath. Some places do it at the same time. But if you aren't doing that, I would really say to the church, so, you know, this is an official day worldwide for Pathfinders. And so we want for our kids to be able to participate in that. So that's where I would start. The other thing that I probably would do is to start volunteering to do things. So and maybe talking with the elders or the deacons to say, you know, so how can we get our kids involved in, some churches will allow for them to help take up the offering. They'll put them with an experienced deacon. But it sounds like that the concern there has to do with maybe kids haven't been mentored well and have sort of messed up. And people have not felt like that, especially in the divine worship service, that that they were able to do what was expected. But I will just tell you that I've said to pastors and I've said to elders, but did you practice with those kids? How did you know they are 10? How did you expect for them to know? Are we just going to wait until they're old enough? So if they're going to have take up the offering, then practice. Don't just grab them in the hall before and say, we're going to take up the offering. Or if they're going to have prayer, don't just stick them up there with a microphone. Talk with them, practice with them, so that they know and are comfortable with. So this is the time, praying for in front of for all the congregants is different than when you're praying at home over your meal or in front of your bed. So you need to spend some time. It's a great experience for the kids. I know that you all know that, but sometimes the expectations, I think, of adults are that the kids are going to perform in a way that it's not reasonable to think that they would.
Thank you. This is our last question. What do you do when multiple ministries in the church don't get along and they schedule events over top of each other?
Well, I would, I guess that I would start by saying, make sure that your calendar is on the church calendar, your club calendar is on early, and that you stick with that. And if there is something new, that you get it on early, because that allows for you to appeal to the appropriate group, whether that's the board or the pastor, and just say, we've been planning this, and it's been approved by the board. So could the other group possibly move? And we talked about conflict management earlier on today. I mean, this is a potential conflict where you may need to decide, so is it worth it to talk with that ministry and explain to them that this is a super big challenge? I don't know what ministry it is, but I can tell you that I know that one that really goofs up Pathfinder and Adventurer is if the school schedules something late that goes over the top of Pathfinder Club ministry, and so the kids are like required to do that. It's not optional. So that I'm sorry, I wish I could just wave a magic wand and say, I give this to you and all those problems will go away. But I do think that if you start early, and give a good schedule, and then don't wait until the last minute, try to identify it early. Hopefully they're bringing their schedule to the church board as well, and you can raise your hand. So that's another good reason to go to the board.
All right. I did see one last question that popped up. If you could just answer it briefly.
Sure.
So the question is, how would you deal with a leader or director that does not share info, is not supportive to parents, and doesn't take time to listen to concerns regarding the club?
Well, if it's the director, that's a huge challenge, because the focus and the feel of the club certainly sort of ripples out from the leadership. So if it's the director and you're part of the staff, then I probably would talk with either the elder or the pastor, whoever you have a better connection with, and just share your concerns with them, that this is what Pathfinder Club Ministry is about. This is what Adventure Club Ministries is about. And the person that the board elected as director doesn't seem to be taking us there. If it's not the director, if it's a staff member, then the director, you should talk with the director and just share your concerns with the director and ask what you can do, if there's anything you can do. And actually, I would say that with the director too, ask the pastor, ask the elder if they've got any suggestions that they could share with you, because this is impacting the ministry. It's impacting the kids' lives, and if they're not supportive, and if they're not, if it's not feeling like the kids or the parents are getting anything out of it, then the ministry has gone astray.
All right.
I hope that helps. I mean,
those are some rough questions.
yeah, those are. So for those of you that are doing this, so lean on your area coordinators. And I'm serious. I mean, I'm laughing about that, but none of these questions you're not the only person who's ever had to deal with these. So lean on your area coordinators, get advice from them. Some challenges are more local, and they may be able to help steer you around some of the history of what's happened there before or why you got there. And then certainly I would say with all those, so with all these, so these are things that we just need to pray about, because it can be a challenge, and it can turn into a confrontation, and people can be hurt, and you can lose people from your team or your church. So make it be a huge matter of prayer before you move ahead with particularly these last few questions.
Thank you, Mr. Forbes. We appreciate your presentation today and for answering those tough questions.